Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this morning's webinar, where we're going to be looking at the version 20 prerequisites and what sort of you need to do before actually upgrading to version 20, and just things to be mindful of when you've actually upgraded as well. Version 20 is quite a big, it is quite a big upgrade and update with a lot of important architectural changes. So moving from version 18 to 20 does require a little bit of prep and just some things to consider once you've actually upgraded. So that's what I'm going to be going through today. There's going to be a few different agenda points in regards to the essentially a checklist and prerequisites. You can also fire up a 2-month hosted, or you can do it self-hosted if you prefer, a trial to play around with version 20 if you've not already done that. I imagine most of you have already looked at version 20 already, but you can do that from within your 3CX poll, so you can just have a quick play around with it as well. So as always, get your questions in. You should see a panel on the right hand side of your screen. It'll say chat or questions, so you can drop those in, and we'll take a look at those at the end. But yeah, it's a good time to get some questions in. Quite a new update, so I'm not saying I can answer them all, but even if I can't, I'll definitely come back to you and make sure that you get an answer to your question. But hopefully I should be able to answer all the questions. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to be looking at a system owner, so the designation of a system owner, which is required before you upgrade to version 20. We're going to look at the system and the network requirements, transition of queues, IVRs, and the ring groups to departments, configuration of departmental office hours. So that's kind of with the point above, so just quite a few changes. Departmental is quite a new feature to version 20, so there's a few changes around that in terms of when you've actually upgraded, just things to keep in mind. Adjustment to call visibility, again, kind of bundled in with the department, but we're going to take a look at that. And then introduction to the new Windows soft phone. We have actually spoken about the Windows soft phone before, but there's a couple of changes around there, and it's just more replacing the desktop app, but that is already available. And then we're going to be looking at some question and answers at the end, of course. So in regards to the designation of a system owner, so a system owner needs to be assigned before moving to version 20. You can have multiple system owners, so these are more for setting up the admin rights of different users, and the system owner is the top admin essentially, so they're the ones that can designate other admin rights, and really has control of the system. And you must ensure that the system owner has an email assigned to it, and it must not be using other extensions on the PBX. So it has to be a completely separate user essentially with an email, and that's essentially where all the potential important emails are going to be going to. So it also needs to be a monitored email as well. If you don't already have a system owner in version 18, you can either just use an existing one, which most likely all of you will have on the version 18. You will have some admin, so that can just be converted into a system owner. But if not, you can just create one, and again, might be on a different email as well. But you can just set the admin rights. So I think on the when you're actually editing the user, I think there's a page called rights, I think it is. You can just go to there and just select it as a system owner. You will see a pop-up banner in the management console and web client if no system owner has been assigned. So chances are you might have already seen this, and if not, get that system owner assigned. So network requirements. So for self-hosted systems, you're going to need at least 2 GB of RAM and 2 virtual CPU cores. This is for quite a small system, so typically up to about 10 users. If you've got bigger systems of around maybe, let's say, 50 users, it's probably double that. So I think with Linux, it is actually just straight double, so 4 GB of RAM and then 4 cores. But I think on Windows, it is actually a little bit more with about 50 users. So it's about 6 GB of RAM and 6 cores. But you can find a lot of information on 3CX's website in terms of the network requirements. If you have larger systems, of course, these are all recommended, but they should be pretty sufficient for you to sort of run that system. So of course, there's also storage you'll need as well. So with about 10 users, 30 gigabytes of RAM is what's recommended. Of course, you might need more than that. You might not use all of that, depending on the how busy the system is. But again, if you're moving up a larger system, you will need a little bit more. Version 20 has only been tested on supported cloud providers, so your Google, your Microsoft Azure, Amazon. So if you are using a different provider, just bear that in mind before upgrading. Just maybe use that test key and make sure that it's going to work on the platform or the provider that you're using. For on-premise installations, a split DNS is required to be configured. So essentially allowing the FQDN to resolve both externally and internally on the network. If you need any more information on that, come speak to us. I imagine there's probably not a huge number of people that applies to, but come speak to us and I can point you in the right direction. Equally, there are guides online as well on how to actually set that up. So transition of queues, IVRs and ring groups, and also department office hours. So all queues, IVRs and ring groups need to be moved to the correct department. If departments are not needed, if it's maybe a smaller system, this can just be set to default, and you just have one essentially. Old global office hours are copied to each department, so you will need to create different office hours if those are required. And this can be really useful for if it just giving you greater control and giving you more diverse configuration options to really customize the system to your customers' needs. So if you imagine if you've got, for example, an accounts team like we have that start earlier and finish earlier, you might want to put them in a different department so that the office hours are then different. After 5 o'clock, it can tell you that accounts are gone for the day, go back tomorrow, things like that. So and of course you might want to just have like a sales, a support and accounts, and just have a little bit more control on what each department is able to do and sort of what the ring groups are like. So let's move on. So adjustment of call visibility. So again, quite similar in the department. So if you are creating departments, you will just need to be wary of the fact that you will need to select which department can see, which user can see which department. So if you want, maybe if you have, a director or a manager, be able to see multiple different departments, their calls, and have visibility of that, you can select that from within that particular user. So here on users, you go to view, and then you can see all the different departments listed, and you can then select which ones you want to be able to see for that user. So in this example here, obviously the user's in a default, but we might want to make them be able to see the sales. Because imagine you've got a director, you might want to see all the different calls and things like that, but equally they might not. So again, giving you just more options, more configuration possibilities. So in terms of the Windows soft phone, so the Windows soft phone replaces the desktop app, and it can already be deployed. So you might already have this deployed in some systems. It could just be downloaded straight from the Windows Store. You can get that straight away, and it should just download it and log in basically. Of course, the web client portal is still available via Chrome or Edge. So that's it really in terms of the prerequisites. One thing I want to mention as well, if you do have some systems that's using hot desking or scheduled reports, these are not quite ready yet, these features. So we're probably looking around February time before those are fully ready and actually available to use on version 20. So I would just keep that in mind if you are, got users that use that. Maybe it's just best holding off for the moment. But yeah, those should be ready hopefully in February is when we're expecting. So, but I imagine there'll be some more information closer to the time. So if there are any questions, get them in. I know I've been having the question around when is it actually going to be fully available, and I think that's actually going to be closer to the end of this month, but possibly early February. I know 36 have also scheduled a load of different webinars as well, going to be going over the main features of version 20. So if you haven't seen that already, head over to 36's blog and you can get signed up to that webinar as well. We will be doing something similar as well in February. We'll be doing another a bit of a webinar on version 20 and the main features. So look out for that as well. But if there are any questions, get them in. If not, thanks for joining. But I'll wait here for a couple of minutes and just see if there's any questions that come through. Or if there's any bits that I need to go back over, just let me know. So will version 80 still be operational for hosted by 3CX solutions after version 20 is available? Yes, it will be. They haven't given an indication of time frame when version 18 is going to be disappearing. I don't think that'll be for quite some time. So you should still be absolutely fine. Obviously, I imagine everyone appreciate that doesn't want to upgrade instantly. Yeah, it will be still fully operational. I imagine for probably at least till the end of the year, in terms of hosting. I would imagine further as well, but it's just more the security around that. It's best to get onto the new version as soon as possible, but appreciate not everyone will want to do that. So if there are any more questions, get them in. Wait another minute or so. But if not, if you just think of something down the line, just give us a call and I'm happy to go through it. So just let me know. But I'll give it another minute or so. So there's another question here. Okay, so I understand customers using Stun only for remote phones will need to change setup as Stun will no longer work. I mean, Stun definitely isn't. I don't actually know if I don't think it's supported anymore. There is actually a template you can use still. So if Stun is still something you want to use, it is still available and you still can use it. But I think that is not for hosted systems anymore, and it is going to be. I might be wrong with that. It's probably best if I just have a quick look into that, and I'll come back to you, Luciano. But I believe it is. I know it's definitely still available via a template. I just don't know if it's supported by 3CX anymore. So it's just maybe a little bit more work that you have to do your end. But it is still there, and I think it will be for the foreseeable future, but just not supported. But yeah, for future installations, it's always best to get an SBC in place. But I'll come back to you on that just to clarify. Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to end it here. Of course, any more questions that you do have, give us a call. I'm happy to go through them. In fact, there's another one here actually. I upgraded our test system to version 20, and I couldn't get Family 7.8 if it wants to register. Version 18. Okay, interesting. It's probably due to that phone not being registered anymore. But again, that's something I can have a look into with my tech guys. I can come back to you on it as well. That's not an issue. The version ones, yeah, because I know there was some changes to the version ones, and I think you have to use a version 2. Although that phone, I'm not sure if there actually is one available. So in fact, as I said, I'll have a look into that as well for you, and I'll come back to you on that. I don't want to give a false answer, so leave that with me. I see, Luciano. Yeah. So this is not a router phone, V2. That probably does make sense why it can't be used actually then. Okay. I'll have a look into that, Luciano. I'll give you a call after the webinar, and I'll have a chat with you about that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining. As always, there'll be another webinar next week. So sorry, next month. So look out for that email on regards to the topic, but it should be around version 20 again. So thanks everyone for joining. Of course, any questions, just give us a call.